the design including shadows that we saw earlier. This was another one of my syntaxes of 1960s. Shadows. If you project a shadow on white paper this way, the pure white paper, its two-dimensional surface at once transforms into 3D space. This is because shadows make the existence of objects stand out. For example, in architectural drawing, this shape is applied. The shape of the shadows is drawn here, but it can be perceived that square objects with variations in height are kept on the surface of this paper and their shadows are projected. These shadow projections are part of the construction practice of architecture students. Shadows in architectural drawings not only show the existence of a building, but sometimes also have the function of showing the elevation of the building or even the elevation of how the building stands on the ground. This is the floor plan of Sydney Opera House designed by the architect Jon Utzon. The shape of the shadow attached to this perfectly suggests the complex shape of the roof of this opera house, which is inspired by yachts. By drawing a shadow, the paper surface that was truly two-dimensional quickly turns into a three-dimensional space. I was enchanted by the allure of this thing called shadow. In Japanese, the word shadow conceals a profound two-dimensionality. It is said even the Chinese-born kanji for word shadow, kage, has duality. If we observe this kanji for shadow once again, I think you will notice that it is made of characters for sun and the kyo of Tokyo under it. It goes without saying that the sun on top is the brilliance of the sun. Kyo as a kanji is indicative of a slightly elevated place, an arc of triumph, watchtower or lookout, or observation platform. That is to say, surveying the movement of the sun from atop an observation platform. This is the meaning of the left side radical of the character kage. The right hand side part, which is a collection of these lines, is read as san and is a symbol indicative of sharpness of sound or light. In other words, the fundamental meaning of kanji kage is to observe the sharp sunlight from the top of an observation platform. Kage, shadow, primarily indicates the sun or the moon, but it means light itself. On the other hand, since the light from the sun and the moon is light, it naturally creates shadows. So the kanji kage is said to have taken on the meaning of shadow that is created by this light. So in Chinese, the character of kage is a character that takes on the meaning of both light and shadow. The Japanese kage also has this duality. If you look for it in the dictionary of archaisms, it is explained to have two meanings, light and shadow of an object. If we look at it this way, the Chinese kanji kage and the Japanese words kage mean light and shadow, yin and yang simultaneously. Thus, it is a word with deep meaning. I feel kage is a fascinating word with a complex meaning and deep nuances. This cover design of musical arts is from 1961 but actually I had already started the composition of this shadow design in 1960. For example, this is the poster of the World Design Conference in Tokyo in 1960. I made a poster that builds a noise pattern by collecting shadows. It is not just one shadow in this paper, it's an assembly of shadows. I would like to draw attention to this point. By using this kind of expression, I intend to express a place where a large number of designers of World Design Conference gather in Tokyo to have a lively discussion. In 1960, I had already tried other forms of this noise design that use shadows in various other projects. This is the cover design of the monthly magazine Kuku Advertising, published by the advertising agency Hakuhodo. I mentioned earlier that I dislike design in the area of advertising, but in the case of this cover, I was told, I will leave it to you for 1 year, so please design it as you like. I was attracted to the charm of the cover that I could design as I pleased, and I accepted the design. Of course, the design of the cover alone does not have anything to do with advertising. In case of the cover design of this advertising as well, I used the technique where three patterns were prepared and combined. In other words, this is also an extension of the self-propagating design. Of the three patterns, A, B, and C, lined up here, the two on the left, A and B, are an accumulation pattern of shadows cut out from one black surface and a pattern that is a shadow of that shadow. The positive film of the shadow is A and negative film is B. If these two are superimposed, a pitch black surface is created. The positive print of shadows and the negative print of shadows, this is the same idea that the kanji or the word shadow has a duality that I explained in the beginning. The remaining one, pattern C, just like musical arts that we saw before, is a pattern by surface. As you can see from the shadow pattern, the square face unit stands up at different heights. I did a fairly complicated calculation to determine the height of the unit faces, but since I lost those notes, I cannot remember how I decided the height. There must have been fair number of calculated manipulations. While using three patterns, for example, in the design of March issue, the C pattern is yellow and the A pattern with a positive shadow is gray. Although making it gray subdued the shadow effect a bit, then the negative pattern of shadow of B is overlaid in black. As a result, this was the kind of pattern that was made. I kept changing the combination, color, and shift of the three prints. For example, the August issue in the center of the bottom row. This yellow design repeats only the C surface pattern 3 times and prints it in 3 colors: yellow, chrome yellow, and gray. In case of the July issue, rightmost in the bottom row, only the negative shadow pattern B is used 3 times in repetition. In this way, the three prints were changed in various ways and the combinations were changed to create cover variations for 12 months of the year. For 1 year, 1960, I pursued noise patterns with assembly of shadows as the motif. Using a similar technique, there is a slightly different design. This is Handicraft News from 1960. In 1964, I was asked to create a powerful design for the 40th anniversary of New Architecture, an architectural magazine, so I tried this kind of shadow design. 1964 was the year of Tokyo Olympics. It was an era when Japan was about to start running towards a period of rapid economic growth. So the design ended up being something that could be seen as a construction hammer sound. But if you look closely at the black area of the big shadow, you will see that it hides many small bristling shadows. Based on the architecture that stands in opposition to the gigantic architecture that has begun to appear in the city. This design incorporates the existence of a commoner's residence into a strong contrast of light and shadow. Here are my designs from the 50s and 60s. On the other hand, a multi-layered design of rhythm and noise was created using music as a motif and shadows as motifs in many ways. In addition, self-propagating patterns were added and various variations corresponding to the printing structure and its shift proliferated. Aggregated designs began to emerge in various forms. Apart from the designs introduced so far, there are many other designs that were based on self-propagating patterns. For example, there are cover designs of musical arts that have not been discussed. Let us look at them. This is a design based on point clouds arranged in a grid pattern. In addition to the basic lattice pattern B, we prepared two patterns A and C that changed the spacing in one direction and brought the design together by changing the combination of these three patterns. Pattern B in the center has 12 equally spaced dots both horizontally and vertically. I would like to draw attention to the segmenting in the vertical direction of A and C patterns on either side. The 12 dot division in the vertical direction of pattern B changes to 10 divisions in pattern A and 14 divisions in pattern C. The vertical segmenting changes in ratio of 5 to 6 to 7. In addition to the changes in the vertical distribution, many of the horizontal rows are removed in patterns A and C. These three patterns are rotated by 90 degrees. Pattern B is colored silver. It is overlapped with pattern A, which is colored red. Lastly, the blue colored pattern C is superimposed. Doing that creates a complex dot cloud rhythm. By changing the shift and the colors, I created cover designs for each month. The next design is a kind of change in the shade of colors. What do I say? It is a pattern that undulates from the center going outward, or an oscillating pattern. This is an example of the pattern research I was working on around this time. Combining such ripple patterns is an example of self-propagating design. Ripple patterns are cut and joined together to multiply into various forms, extending its appearance to the cover design of literary magazines and books. I have an animation showing how this pattern is synthesized, so please take a look. There is another animation for the magazine called Mathematics Seminar. Let us look at it as well. This is the kind of cover design of Mathematics Seminar. In the case of the Mathematics Seminar, we continued to create various growth patterns over the course of 3 years by combining patterns like the ones we saw now. In this case, the circle is inside the circumference as if it were a wheel. It is made a hollow ring and designed it by combining with circles and semicircles. There are 3 variations in the diameter of a circle: a full torus and a half torus of a circle that is 4 by 4 or 1, whole torus and half torus of the circle that is its half, a full torus and a half torus of a circle that is 3 by 4. Patterns of these 6 variations of the circle form the basis. With 3 colors, color changes are added to the combination of these 6 patterns to create unexpected shapes. This series of circles continued to create a dynamic rhythm for about 3 years. Next is the cover design of 1964 magazine called Design. 1 year, 12 issues. Actually, the design was created with a phototype set printed pattern not drawn by hand. For example, this is the design of the May issue, which looks like a pattern of raindrops, but the phototype set printed pattern that form the base is this. I draw the prototype pattern of concentric circles and had it incorporated into the letterpress and printed with phototype setting. The source for printing was the specification sheet on the right. According to this instruction, the operator will change the size at a specified grid-like position. For example, input at spare 48 and input at spare 24, and print while overlapping the figures or spacing them. With that kind of a technique, I created a pattern that became the prototype of the design. This is the design by rotating the pattern by 90 degrees and repeating it 4 times. The next one takes one of the phototype setting background patterns and shifts the printing interval in 2 directions in an arithmetic progression. or by changing the size and printing interval, a rhythmic pattern is printed out horizontally. Alternatively, patterns with different densities are selected and printing intervals are changed to create a pattern like a weather forecast barometric map. In this way, for the cover of the 1964 design, I would change the movement for each issue, write the number sequence for the phototype setter operator, and hand over the specification sheet. In other words, this work was the forerunner of computer design of today. Well, it has been a long introduction, but this was an overview of the major noise patterns and self-propagation patterns that I have been making until 1964. I would like to move on to the next theme, B.